Now, I put together a couple of personal statement ideas that aren't about saving the world. They're personal to me. Here's how I would execute them. This one is informally titled Shadow versus Surface. I wouldn't actually title a personal statement. For most of my life, I thought that I was living in the shadow. In reality, I was barely scratching the surface. By living as an introvert, I thought that automatically meant I was living an introspective life, in touch with my shadow side. But it turns out that well-read doesn't mean well-examined. As a child, I spent most of my free time reading novels because I felt trapped in an abusive household. It turned out, though, that by living through other people, through characters, I was actually taking on their identities rather than fully owning who I was. When I finally moved out of the house and went to college, I discovered that I didn't need novels anymore. I used to read a minimum of 2 to 3 novels per week. Now, I barely read 2 to 3 per year. You see, I've realized I can create my own life story, and I can also do the deep personal work to discover the shadow aspects of my personality and bring them to light. So this is obviously not a final draft. I just kind of jotted this down a couple hours before this evening's class. But this came to mind for me because most personal statements merely scratch the surface under the guise of being professional. But getting in touch with what's underneath the surface and getting to the shadow side is rarely discussed and has a far greater impact. So I prepared this for you and read it out loud just now, not for the exact wording. I'm sure it could be improved significantly, but to make that distinction between personal and professional. Most personal statements naturally tending too much towards the professional. Getting personal, putting out something that feels a little bit uncomfortable for you is going to have a far greater impact. This one is titled Outstanding versus Obsession. I've always had the drive to be outstanding, but it turns out I was merely obsessed. I've always had the drive to be the best in the world at whatever I do. But while drive and determination have their place, it turns out it's an unachievable goal to be the best at everything. And pushing myself to the limit was unhealthy and unsustainable. Whether it was going to CrossFit 6 days per week, running a half marathon barefoot, or trying to walk the 33-mile perimeter of Manhattan in a day with no training, I've chosen a variety of extreme goals over the years in an attempt to prove something to myself and to others. And in pursuit of these goals, I finally reached a breaking point when I could barely walk for 2 weeks. This was a serious physical reminder that I had pushed myself too far and had to slow down. And I realized that improving from where I previously was would allow me to stand out in the long term. That's what would be truly outstanding, not to measure myself simply against others. So again, it's personal, it's succinct. I would obviously write a bit more and I would edit this more, but I'm drawing out some general themes while also giving some very specific examples. I'm also not trying to laundry list everything I've ever done. I mentioned a couple of things because they had a common theme. I also did not aim to define everything with all of the exact details. So in the second one, I didn't take the time to define what CrossFit was. I assume they either know what CrossFit was, or they can look it up, or they can understand it in context based on the name alone or how I frame it. For the previous example, I don't bother listing the specific novels or even the kinds of novels that I would read. It's not necessary. I didn't list exact characters I was living through vicariously. I didn't consider it necessary. I would rather share something else than start laundry listing all the specifics when I think it's not really adding anything. So there are some tough choices here, some tough decisions to make. You can't cover everything, but the most important thing to me at least is that you actually get personal. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.